Nancy here, and I want to show you how to sew in ends. And there's a lot of ways of doing it. It depends often if you want your work to be reversible, and that makes a big difference on how you hide it. This is going to be the inside of our work, so I always leave a nice long tail. Here's my yarn needle. I always fold my yarn in half and I just kind of stuff it through there. This method is how I would treat it if I wanted it to be reversible, so that I don't want anyone to see my yarn end on the other side. So I'm going to take it down through the little loop that was beneath it, directly below that bind off. Alright, I'm going to take and I'm going to follow the outline of a stitch. And what I talk about following the outline of a stitch, when you go in underneath the bars, okay, let me just get it a little closer for you. This stitch here goes around under here, under there, then it comes back around here, back up under this bar, around the top, and so forth. I'm going to follow that. I'm going to follow the top of this stitch, and I'm going to go right underneath like so. Okay? Now I'm going to follow this part, and I'm going to go around it and underneath. Okay? Here I'm going to go over the top of this one, under this bar, under that bar, and notice I don't pull too tight. Okay? What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this pink yarn, and I'm going to thread this through, and we're going to pretend this is gray. We're just going to pretend that this is the same thing so you can follow more carefully what I'm doing. Okay. Pretend this is an end. Okay. Now I'm going to go over the top of this and then take my yarn needle and go underneath this purl bar, underneath this purl bar. Okay. Okay. Now I'm going to go around this stitch, under this bar, under this bar. Okay. I'm going to go around this stitch. See how I'm just following around? I'm not making a new path. I'm following a path that already exists. Okay. You won't see it. It does make the fabric a little thicker, but you know, depending on where you put it, who cares? You know, it's not going to really matter. But okay. See how nice it's just going? I'm just going around. Merrily I go. No problem. Okay. Now, because I don't only go, I'm laying this thread on top of an existing stitch. When you flip it over, you will see that it really does not affect the appearance of this other stitch. You know, the pink does bleed through, but if it was gray, you would never see it. It would never even show. All right. Now, I'll do this side here. If you don't care if it's reversible, what you can do is take and go in at an angle. And what I do is I just split the fiber of those purl bars I'm going into. I just split them in half. And I go in along the edge here. And by doing that, it seems to grab the yarn so it doesn't shift around. I give it a little pull. By going in at an angle, it kind of creates an optical illusion. Okay. See, you can't really see it. When you turn it over, you can't see it on this side either. So it's pretty invisible. You really want to sew in at least 3, maybe 4 inches. If you have socks, for sure at least 4 inches. If you have something you're seaming, you can hide a lot of yarn in the seam itself, but you don't want to overload the seam because it will get really thick and bulky. Here's how I handle something that has ribbing, because there's always ends to sew in. Okay. All I do is I kind of get it started down here at the bottom. I just get it back into, and I will just kind of hook it along here. I'm just going to walk it up the side of these knit stitches. See how I'm doing that? It's going up the side. It won't show through. And it just, I give it a wiggle as I'm going along. And then when I get it all in there, I can snip it as close as possible. See? All good. Okay. Same with this part. You can just work it along your side right here. There's always lots of ends, and I always tell people, you know, I used to be the type of person, oh, I'm going to get my ends sewn in as I go along. I don't do that anymore because I've screwed up enough things that I've had to rip them out. And that's when I found out how good I sew my ends in, because I couldn't get them out again. So I wait now until I'm pretty close to finish before I start sewing in my ends. Okay, so again, I'm going that method of hiding, duplicating a stitch that's already there, just like I did with the pink. So you can flip it over. You cannot see it. You cannot see that it's even there. And that's just a couple ways of sewing in your yarn ends.